Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Excuse me, I have to clean my lens. Every morning before class, I have to clean my lens so we get clear transcendental vision. Yesterday we had an interesting class. We're continuing to read from Srila Prabhupada's books on the topic of dying. What is death? How to leave the body? How to prepare? And we had discussed the topic of death not being a problem, but fear of death being a problem, or false ego being the problem, or holding on being the problem, or conditioning being the problem. And death is just making us aware of what the problem is. So we look at death, all of us, with some concern, some fear, resistance, and so forth. And so what we had concluded yesterday was the fear, the resistance, the unwillingness to let go, that's actually the problem. Dying is not the problem. It's the fear of dying. It's the lack of, ultimately, the lack of preparation for dying. That's the real problem. Not the dying itself. That's just, we said it, that we read that statement, death is just another birthday. It leads you into your next birthday. It's not the traumatic thing. Such as traumatic as we think it is, it's natural. And the only thing that's really traumatic is that we're not prepared for it. As with anything you're not prepared for can be a traumatic experience, as opposed to being prepared for it. Right? Just like if the power goes out in your city, but you have some kind of backup system, you're prepared, it's not traumatic. If you don't, it could be traumatic. Or you can't go out and you're not prepared. So you don't have enough food in your home. So then for what is not traumatic for someone who's prepared, it's traumatic for someone who's not prepared. So that was what we discussed. And then I promised you that we were going to read a story. And this is a story about a devotee, a female devotee. Her name was Gauri. She was basically a book distributor, primarily a book distributor. But she was also an artist. So when needed, she would paint, but her heart was into book distribution. She was probably about 10 years older than I was, and sometimes we would take her out on book distribution, and she never married, very sober devotee. Very Krishna conscious, and she's very Krishna conscious and very sober. So I have something here I want to read about her passing away. She passed away, must have been 25 years ago. There was several devotees, older devotees, who were, because they were older, they left their bodies long before the rest of devotees started leaving. How do I say that? Anyway, they were older than the rest of us. So they were in the first group of devotees leaving. So what happened was she was in hospice care, and the doctor came, or the nurse or someone came and said, she has an hour to live. So she knew, everybody knew. And I'll read something. It's a description of what happened. And sure enough, within 1 hour, she was gone. So they knew. But before she left in that ensuing hour, we witnessed something amazing. This is where, for those of you who just joined, we're reading about a devotee named Gauri, who was a Prabhupada disciple, a female devotee, who was a very advanced devotee, very, very serious devotee. Not only was she fully conscious the whole time, but she even made a point to have her picture taken smiling to be sent to her friends who had served with her with similar dedication. She then verbally relayed a message to accompany the picture. This is her message. By full dedication to one's duty and service, and by tolerating the concomitant dualities of the world, one could, as promised, indeed conquer death. So I'm going to read that. This was notification came 7 minutes late. Is your notification, is it set to my personal page? Because maybe that personal page comes up later. Kamaniya, this is something you should discuss with Radha Priya, because she's kind of helping me with this. That means I should go on 7 minutes early, right? And do a kirtan. So I'm going to read what Mother Gauri said. It's like she's saying, okay, this is the last hour of my life. This is the last hour of my life. Maybe a lot of devotees are getting it late. I don't know. But maybe just go on at 8 o'clock or 8:02. I try to be on time, but I always hit it right close to the edge. So this is such a beautiful story. She is in her last hour. She knows she's going to die, and she's very Krishna conscious. So she says, take a picture of me. And so she's laying on her bed, dying, and she's smiling. She says, take a picture of me and send this picture to my friends. I want them to see this. That's interesting. And so she's on her deathbed an hour before she's dying, and she's smiling. She's very happy. And she's sending a message, and it's a message of reassurance that if you dedicate your lives to Krishna, you don't have to worry about dying. So let me read it again for those of you who just came. This is a story of a god sister of mine and how she left her body. And in the last hour, a picture was taken of her by her request, and with a message, and I'll read the message, and this message was for the devotees, her friends that served with her, and this is what she said. By full dedication to one's duty and service, and by tolerating the concomitant dualities of the world, one could, as promised, indeed conquer death. So I guess the message was that she felt that by dedication to my service to Prabhupada, that even though I'm leaving my body, I'm able to do it in Krishna consciousness, and I'm not, for lack of a better word, freaking out. I'm smiling. This is blissful. This is the culmination. And she said something that we've been speaking about a lot, and she's just confirming. And it's nice that she's confirming it, because she's confirming this by experience, because she went through the dying process. She's saying steadiness in your service and steadiness steadiness in spite of the challenges and the austerities of the service will enable you to be in this consciousness that when you leave, it's actually possible to be Krishna conscious. Yeah. Okay, we'll open with kirtan tomorrow. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Today it's too late for kirtan. Yeah. Okay, so we'll open with kirtan, and that will give everyone a chance to gather. So this is a beautiful story. I think it's, don't you agree? It's quite encouraging to all of us. That here we have the words of someone who went through the dying process. This is her words an hour before. And she's saying, if you do your service, if you tolerate the difficulties in your service, then when you're in this situation, you can do it. You're ready for it. Krishna will give you the power and you'll be blissful. And so she's smiling and she's blissful even though going through this. So this is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful story. You like that story? It's really encouraging. This story will have to go in the book. And we need more stories like this of people who were witnessing devotees leaving their body, what they were saying, what they were experiencing. Wouldn't that be great? You just have, a book like this of realizations of devotees. This wouldn't be the only thing, but this is so, it'd be so supportive and so, it removes the fear that we all have of giving up everything, leaving everything. There's a funny story I heard, I don't know if it's true. And when she was in these last days or last hours, they said, is there anything you need, anything you want, what's going on? And she said, this is really funny and it's really interesting. And I don't think this is really a great impediment for her, but it was really funny because we're talking about what you're attached to in life, you'll think of at the time of death. So they said, so what is it you want? What are you thinking of? And she said, I don't want anything. The only thing I'm missing is the salad dressing at Govinda's restaurant in Los Angeles. She was dying in India, couldn't get that salad dressing. So I thought that was interesting, that she was thinking of that. That's what she was missing. Hare Krishna. But if we can practice living, at least sometimes, like when we go to India, living without all the comforts we normally have, or in our effort to preach and travel, living without the comforts we have, then you can see that you're just so much more prepared for leaving your body because you're used to giving up. So Premananda Gaur, his wife Sachi, he said she had an amazing passing. And if that's Premananda Gaur, if that's written anywhere or can be, or you can make a recording of it, then we could use that. Because all these things are, I was thinking the other day that one of the challenges we have, and it's a big challenge, and it's that Prabhupada says so many things that we can't see. So some of these things are hard to accept because we don't see them, or maybe our experience tells us that this couldn't be true. And we're hearing here about how a devotee, when he leaves his body, he steps on the head of death and so forth, and Krishna remembers him and Krishna makes it easy. But a lot of us have difficulty with that. I don't know about myself. I'm so attached and I can't stand pain and I get easily upset and so forth. So I think a book like this of stories with devotees leaving their bodies would really help us, because then you'll see what Prabhupada said is actually happening, that they're blissful, they're leaving in Krishna consciousness, they're able to handle it, They're able to give up. And so when we hear that, especially if we hear that from someone who is considered not a special devotee in the sense of, oh, this devotee was always very, very advanced from the early days, and more advanced and more detached and more renounced, so naturally they're dying this way. But if it was a devotee like ourselves, say, well, she was just like all of us, or he was like all of us, and now look at how they're dying. That would be so encouraging. It would build faith. We talked about, I was talking about a book with my godbrother, a book about faith, stories of faith. I think it's so important to have stories that build faith. And so this book could build faith, at least in our ability to face the biggest challenge, which is leaving our body. Face it with grace, with sobriety, with Krishna consciousness. So that's why these stories are important. And stories build faith, and our faith often is weak because what we see with our eyes and what we hear with our ears is often different. So we hear it's like this, but we see through our consciousness that it's something different. And so sometimes it's hard to believe, even though we know, we say, no, I believe what Prabhupada says, but I don't see it. But when Prabhupada says it, he sees it. It's different. And we think, if I could just see it, that would make a big difference, but I don't see it. And so we see with faith, but if the faith is weak, then there's some doubt, or maybe not doubt, but just how could this be? I don't see it. Maybe we want to say doubt, but we don't feel it. We don't see it or feel it. And so if you don't see and feel, you don't act. You can't act on a high level of faith if you don't see it and feel it. So stories about people who experienced something that Prabhupada said we would experience would build faith. Stories like, I think I told you the story, one of our god sisters was giving birth to twins, and she was actually leaving her body. And she said that Lord Nrsingadev appeared and saved her. And so to hear a story like that, he said, yeah, Lord Nrsingadev protects his devotees. He protected Prahlad. And you think, yeah, but what about me? I'm not really a devotee. And does he really come to everybody? And how would he know? Does he get there in time? And you could have so many doubts. And then you hear this story of a devotee and said, yeah, I was leaving my body and Lord Nrsingadev came. That builds faith, doesn't it? Or some story in which a devotee was praying in a difficult situation, didn't have any facility to solve a problem, and miraculously the problem was solved in reciprocation of his prayer. That builds faith. So I think these stories would be very helpful. So, Kamaniya, before we go, I read an amazing story which has nothing to do with what we're talking about, at least not directly. But I want to tell you the story because if I don't tell you, I'll forget to tell you in the future because it doesn't relate to this topic, but it's just an interesting story. And you could say a faith-building story. And I just read it, so it's fresh in my mind. And I just thought I'd tell it as, maybe we could say, transcendental entertainment value. As I said yesterday, because these classes go longer, we need some transcendental entertainment value. And in addition, today, this is like a TV show. I'm telling you what we're going to talk about. In addition, you remember our t-shirts yesterday? I got more. I asked a devotee who was collecting my t-shirt quotes, well, we got more. So we're going to get to read more. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9 more t-shirt quotes. Stay tuned, don't go away. So there was a very renounced Brahmin in the forest. His name was Vishvaksena. And he was completely detached from everything in this world. He had no desire for anything, totally detached. And wandering in the forest was the son of a chief of a tribe. And the son met him, and the son said, I have a deity of Lord Shiva, but I cannot worship him because I'm not healthy now, and I need someone to worship him. And I see that you're a Brahmin. Would you worship him? And he was a devotee of Krishna. And he said, no, I'm sorry, I'm a devotee of Krishna. I only worship Krishna. I wouldn't worship him. And because he was a Kshatriya, he said, I order you to worship. And if you don't accept this order, I will kill you. So Vishwaksena thought, oh, well, in that case, if that's the way it has to go down. And he said, okay. He thought about it. He said, okay, I don't want to die, and it looks like this is what I have to do. So he went to the Shiva Linga to do the puja, and he thought, but I'm a devotee of Krishna. I can't worship Lord Shiva. So he began thinking of Lord Nrsingadev and connecting Lord Shiva to that Shakti, that destructive Shakti, to Lord Nrsingadev. And so he was actually worshipping Lord Nrsingadev through the Shila. And he was chanting Nrsinga mantras to the Shila. And when this young prince heard him, he got so upset with him. He said, I asked you to worship my deity, Lord Shiva, and you're worshipping Lord Nrsingadev. So he pulled out his sword to kill him. And the linga, the Shiva linga, the stone, it opened. Lord Nrsingadev came out and killed that boy. Hare Krishna. Isn't that an interesting story? And the moral of the story is, it's not external worship, it's what's going on internally that determines the worship. So even if it was a Shiva linga, he was actually worshiping Lord Shiva in his mind. So this is such an interesting story. And this is totally sidetracked from what we're talking about, but it's just, you say, transcendental entertainment value. When you're chanting a mantra, all the acharyas say you should meditate on the Ishtadev of your mantra, and you should meditate on what your mantra means. So who's the Ishtadev of the Hare Krishna mantra? Of course, Radha and Krishna. Who's the Ishtadev of your Gayatri mantras? There's your Guru, there's Lord Chaitanya, there's Govinda, Gopal, there's Krishna, Shyam Sundar. And so it's not just the mantra, but it's who the mantra worships and what the mantra means. And if you're not connected with who you're worshiping and what it means, then your mantra is not, it's like your mantra is directed to where your mind is. If your mind is nowhere in outer space, you're chanting Gayatri before lunch, meditating on lunch, then your Ishtadev, your worshipful deity, becomes the pizza or something. So that was, a beautiful story in and of itself, but that's also a deeper meaning. Okay. So, before we begin, we'll wait to the end for the t-shirts, okay? So, Kamaniya, then we want to bring up the document at the time of death, and then we want to go to where we left off, which I will try to find now where we left off. So I believe we left off on page 23. This is a quote from Easy Journey, chapter 1. And I titled this, One's Thoughts Are the Results of One's Actions. And this is from Easy Journey. And this is on page 23. And also, yesterday, we had given you a link to be able to download these. I don't know if you saw that link, but of Kamani, if you still have that link, or anyone who has that link, you could put that link there, and then you can have this document. This document is dynamic. That means I'm adding to the document. So what you download one day, a few days later there'll be more. But it's not a problem because usually I add more to the end. And so I would let you know when to download the latest document. Okay, so I'm going to read. I don't. Bhakti Tirtha, oh yeah, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. That would be amazing to compile this book, talk to all the people. Daily quotes with inspirational stories. No, go down. We did Nectar of Instruction, train the mind to think of Krishna. Then after that. We had talked, remember, about training the mind. The goal of Krishna consciousness is to train the mind, and then we had read from the Nectar of Instruction, text 8, and Prabhupada said, you're actually creating your body. Yeah. The next one. Nectar Devotion 10. We read that yesterday. Did we not read that? I remember reading that. No? Anyway, I'll read it again. Maybe we didn't read it, maybe we did, and if we did, we'll remember. And it's up there, Nectar Devotion 10. No, 10! Nectar Devotion 10. I don't have that on mine. Oh. I have Nectar of Instruction. Anyway, it's up there, so we'll read it. This is okay, students, time for review. In the Padma, this is the Nectar Devotion on chapter 10. In the Padma Purana, the same remembrance is explained as follows. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord Krishna, because if someone remembers him either at the time of death or during his span of life, he becomes freed from all sinful reactions. That's the, any contact with Krishna, you become free from sinful reactions. Like we say, if you take Charnamrita, you take Tulsi, you chant the holy name. But thinking of Krishna, that's also contact. And we had spoken maybe 10 days ago about the deity of Krishna in the heart, because mind is a material element, so it doesn't have to be of earth, it doesn't have to be of stone or marble necessarily, or wood. It can be of mind. Mind is also a material element, so you can create Krishna out of your mind and meditate on him. And you can do puja in your mind. You can do artik, offer to Krishna, offer a flower, offer things. So, and then you are in Krishna's presence and you become purified. So, you want to read the next, put up the next one? We read this yesterday, but in the mood of review, we can do it. What he's asking about dementia and Krishna consciousness. I don't know about that. Okay, so Kamini, got it. Okay, so we're going to go to. Need to give a new link. Okay, so now we'll give a new link tomorrow. The link. What are you saying? That link didn't work? Anyway, we'll give another link. So we're going to go where we left off, which is Easy Journey. So I'm going to read. It's important to realize that one's thoughts at the time of death are influenced by the actual deeds which one performs during his life. So this is Prabhupada saying, you can't cheat the system. Okay, I'll engage in whatever activities during my life that have nothing to do with Krishna. And then, when I find out I'm going to die, then, 64 rounds, hearing Bhagavatam, Kirtan, It's not going to happen that way. When you cultivate material attachment, it's not so easy to give up. When one goes to a transcendental planet, however, it is necessary to change both the finer and gross bodies, for one has to reach the spiritual sky completely in a spiritual form. This change of dress will take place automatically at the time of death, if one so desires. But this desire is possible at death only if the desire is cultivated during life. When one performs fruitive actions, one cultivates desires in relation with the material world. But when one practices devotional service, one cultivates a desire for the kingdom of God. So, one of the things Prabhupada says here, I don't know if you picked up on this, he's saying, when one goes to a transcendental planet, it is necessary to change both the finer and gross bodies. So, in other words, that's a way of Prabhupada saying, if you're going to go back to Godhead, it's not, you say, well, you go there, you get a spiritual body. But you can't get the spiritual body unless you have the spiritual mind. You have to have the spiritual mind first. So, in order to enter the spiritual world, you have to cultivate that spiritual mind. And you can't cultivate it in the last 5 days of your life. If your whole, you could, but anything's possible. But basically, Prabhupada's saying, that's not going to happen if you don't do it now. So you have to, what we're doing in sadhana is we're trying to create a mind which is suitable for pure service to Krishna. And with that mind which is suitable for pure service, then we can get the body which is suitable for pure service. And if you have a mind which is not suitable for pure service, then yes, you get a body which is suitable for whatever it is you want to fulfill materially. So the body is just a representation of the mind. And so how can you get a spiritual, if it's true materially, why wouldn't it be true spiritually? We know we get a physical body based on the desires of the mind. And then we had discussed that yesterday, this amazing thing I read. We all know this, but just the way Prabhupada said it. Every body, every species is a creation of a desire of a living entity. It's a body to fulfill a desire of a living entity. And so there are 8,400,000 species. That means 8,400,000 different desires, and therefore bodies to fulfill that desire. And so if we take that idea to the spiritual world, then the spiritual form is a body which is fulfilling one's spiritual desire. So let's say I'm in Sakyaras. So my spiritual form will be a friend of Krishna in his age group. That's the body that would facilitate that relationship. Or my relationship as is in conjugal ras. So I'll be a younger girl. Or my relationship as a mother, I'll be an older mother or even an older father. So it's even true on the spiritual plane. So what the point here that Prabhupada's making is that don't think you can enter the spiritual world if you don't have a mind for it. Because if you don't have a mind for it, you can't get the body for it. It's kind of like qualifying for something. You go in the army, you have to qualify, there's physical exams, and they have to make sure that you're not mentally ill and so forth. Then they give you the suit, then they give you the guns and so forth. So the mind, then the body. And so the body is being created, we're creating our bodies now. So then the question we have to ask ourselves, what kind of body do you think you're creating? Like if you had 7 days to live and you're in the consciousness you're in now, then that's the question. What kind of body are you creating with your thoughts? And then with that question, then this concept we've been talking about, practice for time of death, then it all makes sense. What kind of body is your mind creating? And so, of course, we should be thinking about our relation with Krishna. We should be aspiring, even if we don't know that relationship, at least aspiring to have a relationship. Maybe you don't have an inclination in a particular way, but at least aspiring for a relationship, imagining when would that be. So your mind is in somewhat creating the right space to develop the spiritual form with which you could reciprocate with Krishna. That's the idea. So that's an interesting question, isn't it? If we were to die today, what kind of body would we get? And, you know, someone may think, oh, maybe I would get the body, material body of the opposite sex. Possible. Maybe I would get the body of such and such person because I always think about them, which is okay if they're a pure devotee. But if they're not, then we could see, oh, okay, I have to develop the mind that would allow me to personally associate with Krishna. Because if I don't have that mind, then I'm going to get a body suitable to that mind. Interesting, right? Isn't it? So now, in this life, we're practicing to develop the mind that would allow us to eternally serve Krishna. And we're practicing not to develop a mind that would cause us to form or design a material body. And so, you know how in the Gita, Krishna says, he says something interesting, and it's very simple, and we all know this, but sometimes things which are simple, when you meditate on them, they become very profound in their simplicity. So Krishna says the nature of passion is that no matter how many desires you fulfill, it's kind of like Ravana's head. You chop one off, another one comes out. No matter, so let's say I have 10 desires to fulfill, and in the next year I fulfill those 10 desires. I'll have 10 more desires. That's what Krishna says. The nature of passion is it doesn't matter how many desires you fulfill. You'll always have more desires. And that's our experience. And so, if we're in passion, we have to be careful, because if there's always these desires, then put in this context, we're always creating in our mind a body, another body in the next life. Because if the desires never end, then at the end of my life, because they're still there, I need a body to fulfill those desires. That's the problem. So then I get another body. And let's look at it in retrospect. We have a body. Why do we have a body? There must have been some desires that were unfulfilled. And so whatever is predominating, my consciousness, if I'm in passion, it's just going to keep going on. It's never going to end. And until we come to sattva or transcendence, that process of creating this new body is going to be there. Oh, I wish I could sing like this person. I wish I had the talent of that person. I wish I had the intelligence of this person. I wish I had the position of this person. I wish I had the beauty of this person. I wish I had the resources of this person, the finances of this person. So if we think like that, we're designing our next body, where the process of bhakti on the higher level is you design your body after the body of Krishna's associate. So you're meditating on Krishna's associate. This is called Raganuga Bhakti, but I don't want to explain Raganuga Bhakti, that's not the point. But the point is, in Raganuga Bhakti, you have an inclination for a certain relationship, whether it's friendship or parental, servant, conjugal. And then the process is you find a devotee and you aspire to follow in their footsteps, specifically following in their mood. So you hear about them and you try to understand their mood, and you try to develop that mood. So what you're actually doing is you're practicing now it's a process to stimulate or speed up your awakening of your relationship. But in the context of this discussion, you can see that in that kind of meditation of Raganuga Bhakti, where you're meditating on an eternal associate. Let's give an example, because Prabhupada gives this example. Let's say you're very attracted to this Damodar Leela, and you hear about Yasoda, and you're thinking, wow, I'm so, I see the gopis, and I see the friends, I hear about them, but when I hear about Yasoda, I just feel something special, and I don't know if that's my relationship, but I just like to hear about it. And so you think, okay, let me try this on, let me cultivate this. So I hear about Yasoda and the elderly gopis, and thinking about that relationship and thinking what it's like. And so you're starting at least to think in this way. Maybe it may be too soon for some of you, but there's some seed of that at any point in our bhakti. There can be some seed of thinking about the eternal associates and what it's like and their mentality as just a general understanding. And so by doing that, you can see you're beginning to create this spiritual form. Traditionally, at the time of Bhaktivinoda and before that, I don't know if you're aware of this, but when you were initiated, you and your guru would discuss what your rasa is, or what they think your rasa is. And they would say, okay, well, meditate on being a cowherd boy, this age, this name, this is your service. And it wasn't necessarily that the guru had revelation, that that's who you were, but it was a sadhana, it was a practice, like try this on. How does it feel to be a cowherd boy? It was like that. It was a meditation. So maybe you think, okay, so I'll meditate on Subal and what Subal looks like and what he does, and meditate on this identity you've given me. And so it was just a meditation on that particular body. Isn't that interesting? In relation to what we're talking about here, that if we don't do that, then we're meditating, and we all do this. We see somebody and we think, oh, I wish I had that opulence they had. So I wish I could sing like this one, write like this one, paint like this one, manage like this one, do business like this one, have the muscles of this one, the face of this one, the hair of that one, the eyes of this one, the money of this one, the house of that one, the car of that one. We totally are creating our next body in our mind. And so we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to be thinking about the body within Krishna Lila. And so what Prabhupada's saying here, if you want to go back to Godhead, you can't just try to artificially do it. You have to create the mind of a devotee who lives in the spiritual world. Otherwise, you won't get the body to go there because you won't be qualified. So that's what I picked up from that one sentence. So everything starts with the mind. Hare Krishna. Yeah, so I'm going down here. Okay. So, does anyone have any questions on what I just said? I wasn't trying to confuse you about the process of Raganuga Bhakti. I was just giving you a general idea of how in Raganuga you meditate on an associate of Krishna within a particular rasa that you're inclined to, and you meditate on the mood and the feelings and try to develop. There's much more to it than that, but you can see your mind is now focused on a spiritual form, developing a spiritual form with which you can serve Krishna. Rather than meditating on a body we could get in this world. And the other point that I was making that I think is important for us is it's very helpful to think It's what is it not dangerous? It's dangerous in Raga Nuga Bhakti if you're not qualified. But like I was saying, in general, you can think about being an associate of Krishna in the spiritual world. Yeah. Now, generally, we're aspiring to be pure devotees. We're aspiring to follow in the footsteps of the residents of Braja. So it's a general meditation. You may not be qualified to think that way. But I was just saying, in that process of thinking, you can see how the spiritual body is being formed. And until you're ready for that process, you're hearing about the residents, you're becoming inspired, you're thinking, I would like to serve like them. You don't know what relationship, it's not specific, it's very general. So rather than thinking, I'd like to be like this person in this world, I'm thinking I would like to follow in the footsteps of an eternal resident in the spiritual world. So it gets. So I was just comparing it, how you're creating different bodies in your mind. So what body are we going to create? Generally we would say, if you're a man, probably you were a woman in your last life and you were thinking of a man. If you're a man, probably you were a woman in your last life, thinking of a woman. And even if you think, I don't like women, you're still thinking of a woman. I don't like men, but you're still thinking of a man. Oh, I hope I don't become a woman. I'm on my deathbed. I hope I don't become a woman in my next life. Yeah, well, then you'll become a woman. Some transcendental comedy here, right? We can do a play. Oh, women, they're so bad. I hate women. I just don't want to become a woman. It's so hard to be a woman. And then he dies. So what happens? That story of this Brahmin, in his neighborhood there was a prostitute, and he always thought, she's so bad, she's so bad, she's so bad. And that Brahmin asked Narada, when you see Vishnu, ask him my future. And he came back and said, your future doesn't look good. He said, but the prostitute's, she asked also, and the prostitute's future was good, because the prostitute was always thinking, oh, Krishna, I'm so bad, I'm a prostitute. Krishna, I'm so bad, I'm a prostitute. And he said, she'll go back to Godhead, she's always thinking of me. And the Brahmin was thinking, she's so bad, she's a prostitute. And he's not going, because he's not thinking of Krishna. So, but let's go back, and it's a nice way to think, okay, look at my condition here in this, right now I have a body. So why did I not go back to Godhead in my last life? Because there was something I wanted here, I wanted a body, I wanted to enjoy something, there's something I wanted that maybe you can understand by your own mentality now why you came, what you wanted. But the fact is, we have the body because of things we wanted. And that process will continue if we're not careful. So don't allow your mind to visualize another, well, in this life, I wasn't really wealthy, and I really wanted to succeed at this or that, and I just didn't have the ability, but maybe in my next life, it'll work that way. And that's how it works. You have a desire, you accrue karma, and then you see sometimes people, when they're children, they're extremely talented or intelligent. And obviously, it's accrued from their past life or lives and their desire. So they come in and you see them and they're singing or they're performing in some way, and you see, oh, this person, they're going to become world famous. They're 7 years old and they're a better artist, musician, whatever. Sometimes you see like a 12-year-old's got this incredible brain for business, and he figured out investments, and he's got like $1 million in investments. His father gave him like $100. Now he made $1 million, and he's like 12 years old or 13 or something. That's from the past. So if you're cultivating this, that's what's going to happen. So we should be careful not to cultivate thoughts, oh, I didn't in this life have this, I wish I could have had it, and start thinking about other people who have it and thinking, well, it doesn't look like in this life it's going to happen to me, and then I die lamenting. That would be so unfortunate. So what is Prabhupada saying? Create your spiritual body by being absorbed in thinking of Krishna and his Leela. And if I can't think specifically, I don't know what my relationship is, that's all right. It'll be revealed in time, and the inclination may be revealed later. But at least following in the footsteps of the residents of Braja and imagining in some way being in that Leela, that's my aspiration. And what is the mood? What is the mentality for that Leela? Then we start creating our spiritual body. Otherwise, we're going to create another body. And we how many times did we create other bodies? This is something we've done over and over again. We know how to do it. We're really good at it. So I'm just trying to explain the process that every time you think, oh, I wish I could have had this, my neighbor has that, my cousin has it, I don't have it. It's just an endless flow of passionate desires that will never end. Even if you get it, there'll be others. And then we die that way, and then we get a body to fulfill that. You know, something really funny that a devotee told me that Prabhupada said. He said, the reason Ravi Shankar is so good on the sitar is that he's been practicing the sitar for 1,000 lifetimes. Wow. So this is his aspiration, you know. At least he didn't become a tree or whatever. What's the sitar made of? Out of gourd. At least he didn't become a gourd. He could have died thinking of a sitar and become a gourd. But he's pious, so Krishna fulfilled his desire. And he said, Prabhupada said, 1,000 lifetimes. So if you see somebody who's extremely talented naturally, obviously that's a carryover of what they achieved in the past. And probably they were not fulfilled in the past and they wanted to take it further. And sometimes you'll find a young person is very ambitious. They're very clear about what they want to do and they're very young. Obviously, it was a strong desire from the past. So we don't want to do that, and we have to be careful. Otherwise, we'll be creating our new body. Oh, I wish I could be like her. Now, just as a side point, informational point, and I think you know this, but I think it's important to talk about it. I want to tell a story to illustrate a point that the grass is not greener on the other side. And when we look at people, we often look at people and think, wow, they're in such a better position than I'm in. Look at me and my little apartment and my old car, and I'm not good at this and that. And look at them, their big house and their big car. So I once had a friend when I was young. Actually, I had two friends, they were brothers. But the younger brother, we were friends, not so close, but every time I saw him, he was with a different girl. So I was jealous. I'm like, damn, look at him. Every time, a different girl. Just like every few weeks, he had a different girlfriend. I thought that was pretty good. Of course, looking at it from a Krishna conscious perspective, that was like sad and unfortunate. But as a young teenager, it's like, wow, you have a different girlfriend. You always have a different girlfriend. Maybe it was every month. All your girls are thinking, oh, that guy's a bum. Yeah, but I didn't think like that, not in that consciousness. I thought, he's good. And, he was attractive, but not that attractive. It's like, how does he do it? And it's not happening to me. And, I want to be like him. And so I really envied his position, or let's say I was jealous of his position. I wanted to, I wanted to be like him. And then one day we were talking, or he was opening up to me, and he said, I'm totally depressed. And he gave all the reasons he was depressed. And I was looking at him thinking, his life is enviable. And he lived in a beautiful neighborhood, in a beautiful house. I was really close with his brother. His brother was cool. And then he opens up and I'm totally depressed. And that stood out in my mind as a lesson. That happened probably when I was 17 or 16. And that stood out in my mind. It made this indelible impression on my mind. And it was like the message was, don't think people are better off. He had everything I wanted. So that's the trick, because when we think people are better off, we meditate on, oh, I wish I were in their position. And all we're doing is creating another body. And so my whole point is, we've created so many bodies. We're supposed to stop creating bodies and create a spiritual body. And that's through our meditation on Krishna and our meditation on our desire to be in Krishna Lila. For example, I don't know if you have this experience. Premananda Gaur, maybe you have this experience. I think it was 92 or 93, there was this huge parikrama in Mayapur, and everybody, all the sannyasis, all the GBC, all the senior devotees, like as we say in America, everyone and their brother was there. It was like the who's who of ISKCON was there. So we would go to these holy places, one after another, and there would be katha about what Mahaprabhu did. Sometimes there would be plays. I mean, it goes on today still. They do the same thing. And every time, I mean, you're right in the place where it happened. It's a little different than hearing about it or reading about it in the West. Now you're hearing about it, but you're hearing about it where it happened, in the Dham. So it's kind of special. And every time I would hear about the Leela, I wouldn't say I was very elevated at that time in Krishna consciousness, but by hearing the Leela, a desire developed in me, and the desire was, I really want to be in that Leela. I really want to join Gauranga Leela. So that's the point I'm making. If you develop the desire to be in the Leela, not maybe ready for Raganuga Bhakti, but just, that's my aspiration, that's my goal. I don't want to sing like this one. I don't want to have money like that one. I don't want to have a house like this one. I don't care anymore. That's not my meditation. When I see some beautiful girl or guy, I don't think, oh, I wish I were beautiful like that. I just think, I want to be in Gauranga Leela. I want to be in Braj. That's where I want to be. That's my aspiration. So then now you're creating in your mind what's necessary to create the body. And my point is, we didn't do that in our last life. And that's why we have this body. So every morning when you brush your teeth, you can speak to yourself and say, hey dude, hey dudette, you blew it in your last life. You were a fool. Somehow or other, you didn't become Krishna conscious, and you wanted this body, and now you have it. And even though you have this body, you're thinking, I wish I had a different body, better body, wish I had this, wish I had that. Dude, or you can call yourself Prabhu, but that's kind of awkward to call yourself master. Call yourself Das. Das Anu Das, you blew it. Don't blow it again. Do not blow it again. Aspire to be an associate of Krishna. Aspire to be an associate of Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna. That's how we should think. So, that's what I got from that one. That's what I got from that one statement. I don't know if you got that, but that's what I got. Maybe you got something else. Okay, I'm going to go back and read some comments. Okay. Marco is praising Raganuga Bhakti. Marco says we often underestimate our potential, even the depth of our stupidity. But this refers to yesterday's t-shirt, right? Yeah. So never underestimate the depth of your stupidity, but never underestimate the depth of Krishna consciousness and how it can affect you. I think that's the opposite side. So maybe you hear me talking about Raganuga and this and that. No, but it's a natural evolution if you engage in Krishna consciousness. It's not about you, it's about the process. The process will bring you there if you just go along with the process. So by nature, we're Krishna conscious. So if we're by nature, we're Krishna conscious, why not, if we're following the process, someday wouldn't we be hankering for a place in Krishna's Leela, following in the footsteps of some associate? That will naturally happen. Somehow or other, it will naturally happen. Whether Prabhupada reveals it, whether Krishna reveals it, whether it's revealed at the last moment of your life, it's a natural process. So yes, don't underestimate the depths of your stupidity, but don't underestimate the depths of the potency of Krishna and Krishna consciousness. And as I've often said, what's important, I believe, to remember is that it's not us who makes ourselves Krishna conscious. It's the mercy of Guru and Krishna. Plus, Krishna consciousness is already inherent, so you don't have to make it. I can never become Krishna conscious. No, that's not true. You already are Krishna conscious. You don't have to make it happen. It's not like you're creating it. It's already there, and through the process, it's awakened. So no one should think, well, I'll never this, never that. No, it's just awakening. You don't have to make it. It's not like you weren't given it. Oh, I don't have Krishna consciousness. No, you all have it. We've all been given it. It's just you need to follow a process that'll bring it out. So no one should doubt that it could ever come out purely, or you would never get it purely. It's just coming out. You already have it. So to say I couldn't be Krishna conscious, it doesn't make sense because you already have it. You just need mercy for it to come out, and you have to know how to get the mercy, and you get it through following the process. That's the idea. So Vijay Lakshmi is saying, isn't just the desire to serve Krishna sufficient to be qualified to go back to the spiritual world? But a pure devotee does not mind when he will be in the next life, as long as he serves. Actually, a pure devotee doesn't desire to go back to the spiritual world, but he desires to enter into a relationship with Krishna. He desires to awaken his relationship. So Raganuga Bhakti is about awakening that relationship. It's not actually about necessarily going to the spiritual world. And we had discussed this in the earlier classes, but this may not be applicable to all the devotees. But this is applicable to more elevated devotees. So it's true what you say. Next life, he doesn't care. He just wants to serve Krishna. That's the highest level. But you can't imitate that. If you don't feel that genuinely, and someone might say, well, I feel that genuinely, but then you'd have to examine what level of bhakti you're on, because sometimes a devotee says, I feel something genuinely, but then if you look at their actions and their mentality and their knowledge and their detachment, then it doesn't line up, and say, well, if you feel this, you would be acting and thinking like this. So a lot of times somebody says, I feel this, but then you look at their actions, their consciousness, it doesn't line up with that feeling. So that feeling may be something more like what Prabhupada called a sentiment. Like it's more like, I think I feel this, but really what it means is I would like to feel it, because I know this is the right feeling. But in actuality, I don't feel that. When it comes down to actually looking at myself, what do I feel? I would like to go back to Godhead. But I would like to feel that whatever Krishna wants. But right now, if I had the chance, I would like to go back to Godhead. So you have to look at, whenever you say, I feel something, I'll say, okay, but let's look at what you do. Right? You're crying when you do kirtan. Okay, well, let's go home and see what you do. And then you go home and light up a cigarette and watch a movie. All right, it doesn't work. Krishna, Krishna, and then pull out the cigarette, the bidi. Prabhupada would give that example. So if we're feeling something, it has to be, we should see that it's balanced by how we're acting. And so what a pure devotee is feeling, we would like to feel, but we may not feel. And so then we have to go with what we feel, which may be more like, Krishna, I'd like to go back to Godhead. Help me. But still, I want to be eternal. I want to be in the eternal Leela of Krishna and serve him there. That aspiration is there. But when I go and how I go and where Krishna wants me to go, if I'm a pure devotee, I'll leave that up to him. So Raganuga Bhakti is not contradictory. Raganuga Bhakti is just a process to awaken our relationship with Krishna. the consequence of awakening relationship with Krishna is you'll go back to Krishna, but it's the Raganuga Bhakti is not done for liberation. It's done to connect with Krishna. It's a sadhana to develop our relationship with Krishna. I hope that's clear. If it's not clear, then just ask more questions. Paran. Piotri Bueno, also known as Param Ananda. I often listen to devotees' lectures who say, don't bother with your rasa with Krishna because it would be revealed in due time. That's true. How to properly understand this in context of what you just have said. They're both true. Because we had mentioned a few days ago, and Prabhupada was asked by Dhananjaya Prabhu, what about my relationship with Krishna? And Prabhupada said, I'll reveal it, or I think he said, Krishna will reveal it, the holy name will reveal it. So that's one angle of vision. But the other angle of vision is that you, on a certain level, because you're advanced, may have a very strong inclination towards a particular rasa, and you want to cultivate that. And so the way to cultivate that is through the practice of Raganuga Bhakti. And so it's not something that you would just pick out of a hat and say, oh, okay, on this day I'm going to start doing Raganuga Bhakti. It's because the desire is there very strongly to follow in the footsteps of a particular devotee or to have a relationship in a particular rasa. So it would all happen organically. And if you don't have that, then you just go on with your service. And by going on with your service, an inclination for a particular rasa will become stronger. So it can happen that way where you just feel a strong desire maybe towards a particular rasa and you want to cultivate it, investigate it, learn more about it, understand the moods of those devotees. Or it may happen on the stage of asakti, where on the stage of asakti, on the stage of bhava, then your relationship with Krishna is established. On the stage of asakti, which comes before that, there's going to be a very strong inclination. You're going to be pretty certain that I'm in this rasa. But in bhava, then you'll know for sure, and you'll have that rasa. It's revealed. Sarup Siddhi. So stages prior to that, it can become stronger, but if you just feel like, I don't know, and then don't worry about it. It'll just, as you advance, it'll come. And so Raganuga it's a sadhana, it's just a practice that can be used to speed up your advancement in Krishna consciousness. But you should have some qualification. And if you don't, you could say, well, for me, Sankirtan is my Raganuga Bhakti, or serving Prabhupada is. So that's also another way, not maybe exactly what the Shastra says about Raganuga Bhakti, but it is another way. By serving, getting the mercy, everything will be revealed. So that's there. Chanting the holy name. Some time ago, Indranand Swami was telling a famous story about how Mr. Nrsingadev, a little girl who was hit by a car in the U.S., I think, remember correctly. I don't remember her name. I don't know the story. Maybe some devotees remember the story. I don't know. I think your Guru Maharaj had published a book, or I had come across a book of some kind of miracles of how Lord Nrsingadev saved devotees who had accidents. But there's definitely lots of stories also. To inspire us about devotees dying or almost dying and being saved. Following in the footsteps, not imitating, under the guidance of Guru. Yes, thank you for that. Okay. So, we didn't get to read much. That was a long comment on that. I don't know. I hope that was, maybe that was already clear to all of you before and I was wasting your time. I don't know. But I thought it was important. So let's go to Krishna book. We'll read one or two more, and then we'll read some t-shirt mantras, and then we'll discuss them for transcendental entertainment value. You get your money's worth when you come every morning. So this is Krishna book, chapter 46. And I titled this, If We Are Krishna Conscious Now, There's Every Possibility We'll Remember Krishna at the Time of Death. And those of you who are, as a reminder, if you're watching this on my personal page, you can, as far as I know, you can see comments, but I cannot see any of your comments. And I can't see your name or anything. So if you can read all the comments, but if you want to make a comment, you have to come to the professional page. So this is Krishna book, chapter 46. If we are Krishna conscious now, there is every possibility we'll remember Krishna at the time of death. And that's my title. That's not what Prabhupada said. This is the result of Krishna conscious practice. If we practice Krishna consciousness in this present body, while in a healthy condition and in good mind, simply by chanting the holy Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, we will have every possibility of fixing the mind upon Krishna at the time of death. If we do this, then our lives become successful without any doubt. But if we keep our minds always absorbed in fruitive activities for material enjoyment, then naturally, at the time of death, we shall think of such activities and again be forced to enter material, conditioned bodies to suffer the threefold miseries of material existence. Even Shishupal, Krishna's enemy, thought of Krishna at death and achieved a form in the spiritual world. Wow. So that was just a confirmation of everything we just said. So in the mood of reading more what Prabhupada said, Kamaniya, can we put up the next one? From the Science of Self-Realization, the subtle body lives on. So what we're reading now, let me explain why I put these quotes here. What we're reading now is probably just going to seem redundant to some degree. It's going to be what we've already read and discussed, but now Prabhupada's explaining this in conversations to guests. And I just thought it was interesting to see Prabhupada explain the same thing over and over again. And it just, it just gives us a little more clarity, insight, another angle of looking at what we already know. But it also just shows us how this is how Prabhupada preached. This was one of the most basic themes. I was just listening to a lecture this morning of Prabhupada. And he was the same thing. Actually, I was listening to a lecture, a talk, a conversation yesterday, then listening to a lecture this morning. It's the same thing. You're a human being. You have this human body. Why waste it? Use it for becoming Krishna conscious. Go back home, back to Godhead. That is just a message over and over again. So you know this, but just to substantiate it and to see how often Prabhupada spoke this, and in the ways he spoke it, I just included these. So we can read through them. I don't think there'll be a lot of discussion. This is from Science of Self-Realization 1. I titled this, The Subtle Body Lives On. And so this is Prabhupada just talking to a guest. After, it would be talking to a guest or it would be an article he wrote, but usually talking to a guest. After the destruction of the gross body, which is made up of the senses, blood, bone, fat, and so forth, the subtle body of mind, intelligence, and ego goes on working. So at the time of death, this subtle body carries the small spirit soul to another gross body. So we made this point before, but I just want to reiterate it because I find it interesting where the subtle body goes on. This concept of death, like everything's finished. everything's gone, new body, new scenario. No, it's not like that. New body, new scenario, not new subtle body. That is so, I don't know, I don't know if you find it powerful, but I find it powerful in the sense that if I allow myself to cultivate material attachment, if I allow myself to cultivate, I'm using this word cultivate, bad qualities, and you may say I'm not cultivating bad qualities. I'm trying to cultivate good qualities. If we don't give up bad qualities, we're actually cultivating them because we would be able to give them up. That means by cultivate, I mean we're acting on them. So if we're cultivating bad qualities, the anger, the envy, the jealousy, whatever it is, the lack of sense control and so forth, that's in the subtle body. Those tendencies, those samskars, that nature is in the subtle body. And so when we take birth again, that nature is there. And that's why a lot of us, we see we have a certain nature and we're trying to figure out where did that nature come from, because it doesn't look like that corresponds to exactly everything that I was cultivating in this life. Well, you brought your subtle body with you. It was already there. You already had this mood and mentality. And you can see that in kids. Sometimes kids are like pretty sarcastic, feisty, or depressed, or they lack self-esteem, or they're arrogant. It's like, whoa, where did that come from? It's just you lost your body, but you didn't lose your subtle body. So, ladies and gentlemen, beware of what you cultivate. This class, I think, is clearly showing us we have to be aware of what we cultivate in our mind. Not only will it take us into another body, but that same inclination, those same thoughts, those same desires, they just carry over, which is fantastic if those desires are Krishna conscious. So even if you don't become completely perfect, at least you have strong inclinations to be Krishna conscious. But if they're material, that's really unfortunate, because then you have to carry that jealousy and that attachment and whatever it is, you have to carry it into the next body. And probably you're going to be a devotee in your next body trying to be Krishna conscious, but then you're going to have to deal with all this other stuff still, It's not that just if you're born a devotee, you don't have stuff to deal with. You have all that stuff. And so if we can get rid of more, we can get rid of now, the more we can qualify ourselves to enter Krishna Lila and not have to take another body. And the less we get rid of, then we have to take that all and deal with it all in the next life. And you're probably sick of dealing with it in this life, I would think. Right? Isn't it? It is. I'll answer the question for you. Okay. Hare Krishna. That's the bad news for today. So if anybody asks you, what was the essence of today's class? He said, it was bad news. We got some really bad news. So what was it? Coronavirus? No, much worse. We got bad news that if we don't become Krishna conscious, we get a new body, but we don't get a new mind. No, I thought I'd get a new mind. I thought I'll be born a devotee and it'll just be a clear slate and I'll be hearing Krishna Lila from the womb. Yes, that's true. You will be. So you'll get all that new stuff. You won't have to grow up like an ordinary kid and listen to fairy tales and nursery rhymes. Well, you may listen to a few of them, but you'll get Krishna Lila in there. But that's just going in with all the other stuff. That's what we forget. We think, no, I just get it. It's like, beautiful. I get it all from the beginning. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. My mother read Bhagavatam to me in the womb and this and that. Yeah, fantastic. Who can argue with that? That is so helpful. But you also have the other stuff from the last life. Don't forget that. So that's the bad news for today. Hare Krishna. Transcendental humor here. Okay, so Kamaniya, we're going to read the next one, Dying with Unfulfilled Plans. And Kamaniya says, Guru Nisha says, such a wonderful point to ponder. If we don't give up bad habits, we're actually cultivating them. Yeah, I've made that point many times. If you don't give them up, you're actually acting on them. And by acting on them, you're cultivating them. Dying with unfulfilled plans. So we're going to read that. This is from the 5th chapter of Science of Self-Realization. And we have sound effects in the back, which is the rain on my metal roof. It's been raining all night. It rained all day yesterday. And rain is good for the farmers. The only thing I don't like about rain is that we live on 5 acres. So when it rains, then the grass grows. And it costs it's like $150 to mow the whole 5 acres, to hire somebody. Something outrageous like that. And I think, oh no, it's raining. And I see dollar bills floating away in the sky. I'm losing money, it's raining. And I used to do shows outdoors. I had a business and we would go outdoors. And even for Harinama like that, and it rains, we think, oh, it's raining, this is so horrible. But actually, rain is good. Rain is what waters the fields and the farms, and rain is beautiful. But it also makes my grass grow, which is... Well, any of you want to come out here and mow my lawn, you're welcome. But I don't have one of those. You have to get one of these driving lawnmowers. I don't have one, so you hire somebody. And then the problem is everyone around here has them, and they always do it on Saturday. So if ever I want to record a video or music on Saturday, I hear it everywhere. It's just part of the anxieties of life. Okay, let's read. Self-Realization, Chapter 5. I don't have a page number or anything, but at least it's some reference. At the time of death, our mind may be thinking, quote, oh, I could not complete this work. Oh, I'm dying. I have to do this. I have to do that. This means that Krishna will give us another chance to do it. And so we will have to accept another body. He will give us the chance. All right, you could not do it. Now do it. Take this body. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam says, these rascals have become madly intoxicated. Because of intoxication, they're doing something they should not have done. So, here's a warning. Now, then you might say, but what if I have a desire to serve? What if I have so many plans for spreading Krishna consciousness? Then just pray, give those plans to someone else, give those ideas to someone else, and bless them, and it's better you just die in Krishna consciousness. Well, okay, Krishna, whatever you want. You want me to come back, fulfill those plans? Maybe. If you want me somewhere else, yeah, that's fine. But we wanted to die. We definitely don't want to be attached to anything in this world, only attached to what Krishna wants of us. So, wow, now we're getting lots of comments. Okay. Chaitan says, what exactly happens with our intelligence and false ego? These are also carried by the subtle body. So we continue suffering and enjoying consequences of, See, Chaitan is doing, he's done one PhD in America here. He's from India, now he's doing another one. So, using this example, you could say, perhaps in your last life you were a scholar and you had like ideas to study so many things and you weren't able to do it. And so now it's carried over. It has to be that our tendencies are carried over from the past. So it's not going to, what we do in this life is not going to be a whole lot different on the subtle plane, it might be different. You study different things, or your tendency for intellectualism came out in different ways. But that tendency is going to be there, so it's going to manifest in some similar way. So we continue suffering and enjoying the consequences of the intelligence of false ego as well. If you so desire, please consider. Yeah. It just takes different forms according to your particular body and your new circumstances. But yeah, it will take different forms, but the tendency will be there. And so this works for us and against us, because if you cultivate Krishna consciousness and you don't go back to God, at least you're gonna take a body, you're gonna have a mind, you're gonna have all these samskars that are gonna help you in Krishna consciousness. The opposite is the problem. That if you cultivate, like men are overly attached to women, women are overly attached to man. And so a man is like looking at the woman's body thinking it's so beautiful. The woman's looking at the man's body thinking it's so wonderful. So then what happens? That's what they're thinking of. And so they get that body. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with a woman's body or a man's body. It's just there's something wrong with taking a material body if you don't have to. If you've given a process to take a spiritual body and you take a material body, well, it's a failure. You failed your class. You failed the exam. I don't know if that answered your question, but I think I actually answered it before you asked it. But if it didn't, then you can write again. Vijay Lakshmi says, is it true if we try to rise above dualities, 90% of our karma is destroyed? When you surrender to Krishna fully, all your karma is destroyed. But Prabhupada said it's like a fan, it's slowing down. And ultimately, we're not even concerned whether our karma is destroyed. We're concerned loving Krishna. But that karma, with it comes obstacles and contamination. So we say what we want to destroy is the sinful tendency, most importantly. Like the results, the reactions to our karma, that's nice, but what we want destroyed is the tendencies that created those reactions. Because ultimately, like Prabhupada in one prayer, he said, well, Krishna, I'm willing to suffer the reactions of my past karma, but let me engage in your service life after life. So really, for us, for a devotee, it's like, okay, I did so many sinful things in my past, Krishna, if you want me to suffer, that's fine. But I want the karma that I want purified is the tendencies to commit those sins. We say he's becoming freed from sinful reactions and so forth. Ultimately, that's the aspect of it that is most beneficial. The sinful tendencies. Otherwise, what's a reaction? So karmic reaction, I should suffer this way. That's Krishna's mercy that he removes it. But and he removes those things so that you don't have to take birth again in this world. You can go back to him because you have no karmic, you don't have to go to court of Yamaraj. So that's there also. That's all byproducts of just being Krishna conscious. So Param says, did I have a good understanding that we need constant encouragement and our gurus to indulge us until our very strong desire to develop for Krishna consciousness because we ourselves are lazy? Yes. I mean, you said here we need constant encouragement. Yeah, we need constant encouragement, but we need to imbibe that encouragement so that encouragement continues. So it's an interesting question. I could give a whole class on this. Because, okay, on Thursday morning, actually tomorrow morning, I don't know if I'm going to be able to give a class because tomorrow morning at 7, I give a class in Chinese. That's a whole other thing. Let me think about this and I'll tell you what we're going to do. It's like, I could broadcast twice, but I'm giving the same class in Chinese that I give on Saturday in the evening, although it's probably going to come out a little different. So, but on Thursday, we'll do the same class, but we do it in Russian, and then hopefully we can send it to Facebook, but we'll give you the link. And we're going to talk about balance. So this is really a question of balance, what you're asking. How much encouragement do we need, and how much, at what point does it become unhealthy, that we become in an unhealthy way dependent on that encouragement, that we can't be inspired unless we get constant encouragement and appreciation. So general encouragement from hearing philosophy, hearing Bhagavatam, yeah, we need that all the time, but we need to abide that so we get more mileage out of it. But if we're like a balloon with a hole in it, and we need always to be encouraged and praised and honored, and then it leaks out, that's very unhealthy. So encouragement from Shastra, philosophy, yeah, we all need that. But that's a little different than personal encouragement. Ganesha says, my mother used to tell me when I was a kid that when Krishna takes a bath, it rains. So we as kids were always happy when it rained. I never heard that, but I like that. Don't know if it's true, but anyway, we can think like that. Good rain comes from Jaga, yeah. I'm chanting too many devotees sitting home chanting japa in their houses all day, and now it's raining in Alachua. Kardama Muni says, we will not come to the topmost platform unless we start chanting 64 rounds. Not what Prabhupada said. I don't want to differ with you, but that was brought up to Prabhupada. And he said no. He said because it's not a mechanical process. And in fact, in the class the other day, we had mentioned that Bhaktisiddhanta was asked how many rounds do the Grihastas have to chant. He said 64. And how many rounds do the Brahmacharis have to chant? He said they don't have to chant any because they're engaged all day. So if you talk to the disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta, you'll find it said he put stress on service, go out. And so people who were chanting 64 rounds, no, go out, preach, don't stay back. So he put stress on service and chanting in the mood of service. So if you can chant 64 rounds, go for it. But Prabhupada didn't want us to minimize our service. So, Vrindavan Leela, Pandora Hinson says, both my parents have had Alzheimer's, dementia when they died. It is likely I will have Alzheimer's. At the time of my death, my astrologer said I will be very confused at the time of death, but it will be a full-time temple devotees in my next life. Oh, okay. Not so bad. What you might want to do is look at diets and lifestyles that could counteract dementia, minerals or this or that. That could help. Who knows? You're a devotee, so your astrologer could be wrong. Okay, so unfortunately, T-shirts, we don't have time, so I'm only going to read one today. Some of these things, Priya emailed me, T-shirts things that were just things I wrote to her in a letter that wasn't even intended. Okay. Karma is like cooking. Whatever you make, good or bad, you eat. And the reason I came up with this idea was Bhaktisiddhanta said that people, when they're handed the fruits of their karma, they get upset. And I was thinking, handed the fruits of their karma, it's kind of like you're in a restaurant and you're handed your plate, and then you yell at the waiter and say, why did you bring me this plate? I don't like this. I don't want this. He said, but you ordered it. Well, I don't like the way it looks. Well, it's too late now. This is what you ordered. You have to pay for this. You have to eat this. So Bhaktisiddhanta is saying, that's what happens. We get our karma served to us, and we look at it and we go, oh, I don't want that. Could I have what That person over there, the next table has it. Well, you didn't order that. You could have that if you pay for it, but you didn't pay for it. So you could have that karma if you pay for it, but this is what you ordered, and this is what you paid for, and this is what you get. And then we look at it and go, oh, I don't like this karma. Couldn't I get the karma of, like, somebody more famous, somebody wealthier, somebody smarter? So that example came in my mind. Karma is like cooking. Whatever you make, good or bad, you eat. So we're all cooking up our karma. So if you don't like what you're eating and you're going, oh, this tastes terrible. Yeah, well, guess who cooked it? Hare Krishna. So tomorrow is a class on the 10 Habits of Highly Ineffective People in Chinese. And so we are going to be on another platform called WeChat. And I could try to broadcast it also on Facebook, or I could see if they could send it to Facebook. I don't think they can, because in China, Facebook is like, it's not allowed, but I could find out. But so what I will do, 7 a.m. tomorrow, an hour earlier than Radhapriya, you could help people with this. 7 a.m. tomorrow, I will give the class, but I'm going to give it differently. I'm going to make it, the class I gave that I'm giving every Saturday, it's a little more focused on psychology. This class, I'm going to focus it more on philosophy. So the first one, as you remember, is self-compassion, self-love. But Prabhupada talked a lot about this in a philosophical sense. Talked a lot about self-envy in a philosophical sense, and destroying your bhakti. So I'm going to talk more about that. So it'll be a little different. And even if it's not entirely different, it's not always. You may want to hear it again. Anyway, so every Wednesday, and then every Thursday at 8 o'clock is Russian, and Russian is on Zoom, and we should be able to send that to Facebook. At least in theory, we can do it. And anyway, we'll send you all the Zoom link anyway, but it's limited to, it may be limited and you can't get on the Zoom. So we have to figure it out. We will have to figure out today how to do that. So that's Thursday, and then tomorrow, and then tonight at 7, if you want to attend, we're doing a class on forgiveness. It's going to be translated into Spanish, and it's going to be on Zoom. And I think Radhapriya put up that information. So of course, I'll be speaking in English, but this class on forgiveness is going to be different from normal classes I've given, as it's just for devotees. And a lot of you know everything I've taught about forgiveness, but this is going to go more into the things Prabhupada said about it and what our Shastra says. So it's going to be more of a philosophical. So unfortunately, Chetan, that is, I don't know, that's like, for you, that's like 4 in the morning or 4:30 in the morning. Anyway, it'll be recorded because Chetan, you wanted to know more about the philosophy. This is from Prabhupada's books, just what we got here and there that relates to forgiveness. So that'll be interesting, and we'll be doing that every Tuesday at 7 o'clock, in 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, translated into Spanish. And yeah, because it's on Zoom, so we can have them record it, and then we can put it up. We can arrange for that. And I don't know, I think we can put it on Facebook, at least the link. So we'll do that. So that'll be interesting. I don't get to discuss forgiveness philosophically so much, and this will be nice for me, and I think it'll be nice for everyone, especially because most of you have heard me speak about forgiveness in more of a practical way. And so this will also be practical, but the practical aspects will incorporate the philosophy. So hopefully things will work out tomorrow at 7, where I can do both broadcasts if I have enough bandwidth. And we'll see. We'll try our best. I may have to broadcast on my computer, on Facebook, and it'll look a little different. Maybe sound a little different, but you should be able to hear something. Yeah, upload to YouTube. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think we did that with the last one we did on Zoom. Okay, so we're gonna go. I'm gonna take breakfast. It's late. I haven't eaten yet. Hare Krishna to all of you, and hopefully everything will work out tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.